Imagine you're walking down a busy city street. Everywhere you look, you're just bombarded by advertisements, right? A glowing billboard tells you to buy the newest sneakers. A bank sign promises you a perfectly secure future. But then, you put on a special pair of sunglasses. Suddenly, those billboard sneakers vanish, and they're replaced by the words, "Submit to consumerism." That political poster over there, it instantly changes to "Obey authority." Now, you might recognize this as the famous plot of John Carpenter's 1988 cult classic film, They Live. For decades, political thinkers told us that this movie was the absolute ultimate metaphor for how ideology works in our society. They claimed ideology is basically just a fake pair of glasses that elites slip over our eyes. Take off the glasses, clear away the propaganda, and boom, you finally see the real truth. Well, welcome to The Explainer.
Okay, let's dive into this, because we are about to completely shatter that classic myth. The whole glasses metaphor sounds great in theory, but it kind of falls apart the second you look at how human beings actually behave in the real world. And this brings us to a really central, incredibly challenging mystery. What happens when people already know the truth, but they just keep participating in the lie anyway? I mean, if ideology isn't a blindfold hiding us from the facts, then what exactly is it?
Enter Slavoj Žižek. He's this manic, chaotic, and utterly brilliant philosopher who completely blew up the old understanding of ideology with his 1989 thesis. Žižek argued that, actually scratch that, taking off the glasses of ideology wouldn't reveal some pure hidden truth. In fact, if you actually took them off, it would cause our entire social reality to collapse. Ideology is the very lens through which reality makes sense. Without it, you literally wouldn't be able to buy a cup of coffee, talk to a friend, or even look at yourself in the mirror.
Section 1. The Glasses of Ideology. Marx versus Žižek. Let's map out this fundamental shift in how we understand false consciousness. What's really fascinating here is the direct contrast between these two views. On the one hand, we have Karl Marx's classic view. He famously wrote, "They do not know it, but they are doing it." Marx was basically picturing naive, brainwashed medieval peasants who genuinely, truly believed a king was chosen by magic to rule over them. They operated under false consciousness. But then Žižek comes along and points out that this just doesn't apply to our modern world. Today, the formula is totally flipped. They know very well what they are doing, yet they're doing it anyway. Take fast fashion, for example. We all know those brands can be highly exploitative to workers overseas, right? We have the facts. We know the truth. Yet, we still buy the $5 shirts.
Moving to Section 2, Knowledge versus Action, and how cynicism actually powers the system.
Think about your own smartphone habits for a second. Do you know that doom scrolling harvests your personal data and completely wreaks havoc on your dopamine levels? Yes. Do you keep doing it anyway, every single night? Absolutely. This brings us to a vital concept called cynical reason. We define this as using irony and awareness of a system's flaws as the psychological permission to physically comply with it. You see, today we aren't brainwashed peasants or ironic, edgy, modern people, but that exact feeling of being too smart for propaganda is actually the safety valve that keeps us completely compliant. Because you tell yourself you're intellectually awaking to how rigged the system is, you feel morally superior, which somehow excuses your physical body to just go right along with it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of interpassivity, which is probably best explained through the Santa Claus illusion. Think about a modern family at Christmas time. Do the parents genuinely believe in Santa Claus? Of course not. Does the child believe? Often, deep down, they kind of suspect it's just their parents, but they pretend to believe so they get the presents. Literally nobody in the room actually believes in Santa, yet the ritual survives perfectly. Why? Because both the parents and the children offload their actual beliefs onto the physical ritual itself. The belief exists in the action, not in anyone's conscious mind.
To put that into perspective, just think about a $100 bill. In physical reality, it's just a totally useless piece of paper with some ink on it. Connecting this directly to Marx's concept of commodity fetishism, Žižek points out that the magical value of this piece of paper doesn't exist in our rational conscious minds. I mean, if someone asks you if that paper is inherently sacred, you'd say no, obviously. But the illusion is locked inside your physical actions. The exact moment you hand that bill to a cashier to buy your coffee, you are acting as if it possesses magic. The commodity itself acts as a fetish. It literally holds the belief for you, completely regardless of what you think in your head.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this all builds, the Lacanian triad, or the architecture of the mind. To understand why we so desperately need these illusions, we've got to dive into a bit of psychoanalytic theory.
Jacques Lacan mapped out the architecture of human experience into 3 distinct steps. First up is the imaginary. This is the realm of images. Think of a baby looking into a mirror for the very first time, seeing this fake, whole, put-together image of themselves, which basically saves them from feeling like a chaotic, uncoordinated blob. Second is the symbolic. This is the massive matrix of language, laws, and unwritten social rules, what Lacan calls the big other. But then we get to the third step, and this is the terrifying one, the real. Now, this is not everyday reality. The real is the raw, unspeakable, traumatic glitch in the universe. It's that sudden catastrophe or deep existential dread that completely breaks language and leaves you utterly speechless.
Which brings us to Section 4, Sublime Objects and Scapegoats. This is how we go about filling that terrifying void. Here is the absolute terrifying truth. If humans were exposed directly to the raw void of the real, we would instantly go insane. So, to survive, we build these heavy, protective shields made of ideology, using what is defined as a sublime object. This is just a mundane, everyday object that society elevates to fill the impossible hole of the real. Žižek loves to use Coca-Cola as the ultimate capitalist product to explain this. Think about it. When you're thirsty and you drink water, your thirst is quenched. But when you drink a Coke, the sugar and the salt actually leave an aftertaste that makes you want another Coke. It doesn't permanently quench your thirst at all. It's an object that magically produces the very desire it promises to satisfy. Now, shifting from personal psychology over to massive political systems, we see this exact same mechanism act as the ideological fantasy. Listen, every single economic and political system out there has inherent, unavoidable structural glitches. For example, pure free market capitalism inherently suffers from wealth inequality and these cyclical boom and bust market crashes. But because it causes just overwhelming anxiety to admit a system is fundamentally flawed at its core, the system creates an ideological fantasy to mask those glitches.
And right inside this fantasy, systems invent the scapegoat. Žižek points to the horrifying historical example of 1930s Nazi Germany to illustrate this. At the time, Germany was collapsing under hyperinflation and economic ruin, which were inherent systemic glitches. But instead of admitting the structure itself was failing, the ideology invented the utterly contradictory scapegoat of the Jew. They were painted impossibly as both bottom-rung plotters and elite global bankers at the exact same time. The scapegoat hides the internal collapse by selling this incredibly dangerous illusion that society would be a perfect, harmonious paradise if they just eliminated this one specific outsider.
Now let's look at the fascinating gap between biological death, which is just the end of the physical body, and symbolic death, the end of a social identity. Žižek uses Alfred Hitchcock's film Vertigo to explain this perfectly. In the film, a detective's lover physically dies, but her symbolic presence survives because he obsessively forces a completely new woman to dress and act exactly like the dead ghost. Applying this politically, look at the Soviet Union in 1985. The system had already suffered a symbolic death. Almost nobody actually believed in the ideology anymore. The official speeches were totally hollow and empty. It basically became a walking zombie long before the physical structures actually crumbled to the ground.
So, to understand how to break free from this, we really must solve Hegel's puzzle. Imagine you're putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle, and right in the middle, there's a missing piece. The naive person thinks, oh, someone stole the piece. The cynic says, well, the puzzle is stupid and rigged anyway. But Hegel's radical idea is that the missing piece is the picture itself. True wisdom isn't finding some flawless, glitch-free paradise or eliminating all our problems. True wisdom is the profound acceptance that contradiction and paradox are literally built into the fundamental structure of reality itself.
So, the crucial point is, how does a book from 1989 apply to us right now? Section 5, Ideology in the 2020s. Welcome to the modern trash can, where we crash these theories directly into our digital world. Let's just rapid fire through 3 very modern examples. First up, ethical consumerism. When you buy a $6 eco-friendly coffee, you're combining consumption and redemption in the exact same act, right? You're essentially buying your way to a clean conscience without disrupting any actual economic structures. Second, virtual activism. You offload your political action to an algorithm by reposting a little infographic, feeling this deep sense of relief that you did your duty, all without any real-world sacrifice. And third, crypto and NFTs. People buying digital apes is just pure commodity fetishism completely stripped of physical reality. All of these are just modern tools we use to maintain our ideological fantasies without causing any actual disruption. Stepping out of this matrix requires what is known as traversing the fantasy. Žižek jokingly calls this stepping into the trash can of ideology. It means finally giving up the comforting illusion of a perfect, glitch-free society. And look, it hurts. It really hurts to realize that your deeply held beliefs or your daily consumption habits are built on top of a void. But traversing the fantasy means having the courage to look at the world's contradictions with incredibly clear eyes and just admitting that the system is broken at its core.
And that brings us to the end of this explainer, but I want to leave you with a mind-expanding prompt to ponder. As Žižek warns us, we can never truly take off the ideological glasses. Living completely without them would literally break our reality. But we can become fiercely aware of the lenses we are looking through. So look around your own life right now and ask yourself, what is the biggest sublime object in our culture today? What is the thing we elevate to hide our deepest systemic glitches?
Please like and subscribe.